Story time. Special.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Story Time. Today's title is The Artist. There was once a masterful artist whose home was in a small city atop a large hill. He had painted and sculpted many beautiful things in his lifetime, but there was one in particular which stood out to him as his best, his most precious work. He gave it a place of honor in his gallery above all his other creations. He cherished everything about it. One day, a servant of his, who had become jealous of the high regard in which the artist held this most precious work, had seized it and done great damage to it. It looked to some as though any repair would be next to impossible. The artist was devastated and could hardly look at his masterpiece any longer. It was so badly damaged that it had become abhorrent to him. So time passed, and in due course, the once lauded work was taken from its original centerpiece position and separated, far away from the artist and his other works. A time came, in fact, that he was so grieved he could bear the sight of it no more, so he removed it from the gallery completely. But even still, he never forgot about it or the joy it had given him to make it. Its original beauty still captivated him. He would spend countless hours just trying to imagine it again as it once was. But he knew at the same time in his heart that this could never be. Now, the artist had a son who was with him when he had first conceived of the piece and had assisted his father in its origins. You see, his son understood how rare and beautiful it was, and also had never forgotten its former glory. He knew that even with the damage and the effects of time and wear, it had never ceased to be anything short of his father's masterpiece, the most precious work the artist had created. So he asked, and his father gave him permission to attempt its restoration. Many ways that he tried soon failed, and many years passed in the meantime. It became clear to them both that to remake the great work properly would eventually cost his son's life. But the son, knowing how dear it was to his father, and wanting more than anything to please him, endeavored it nonetheless. His best and final attempt was both a terrible and amazing sight to behold. He had realized at last that it would take the full measure of love and devotion his father had had in the beginning to make this thing perfect again. This would mean sacrificing his time and every ounce of the talent and energy imparted to him to ensure attention would be paid to every last detail. The work was arduous, frustrating, and at times nearly too great a weight for him to bear, but he pressed on. His father's love for him and for the creation was so deeply ingrained in him that he was willing and able to overcome all pain, fear, and hardship to see the fruition of this greatest of tasks. In the end, when recounted, the cost of the restoration had indeed been much for both the artist and his son, but the reward was worth even more. The work the artist had begun so long ago, once lost to him, had been remade through the eyes of his son. It had been given back its former beauty, but now there was something different about it, something much, much more. The son, who had borne the full weight of this restoration, had in due course, in fact, lost everything. And even his father, still unable to stand the sight of his creation in such disrepair, had been unable even to watch the process, and this too had added greatly to his son's travail. When the time came for the unveiling, people from every part of the world came to see what would be the culmination of a generation of blood, tears, and devotion. The artist and his son had decided together, you see, that its restored beauty was too great a thing to be kept to themselves. So it was given the finest place at the center of the city where they lived. So the day came, and the veil was torn away. But the people's hearts and their reactions were divided. Some, not unlike the artist and his son, were so overcome by its simple and pure beauty that they would visit daily, if only to spend a moment near what they thought must be the most precious and beautiful thing they had ever encountered. There were others, however, were much like the man who had destroyed it to begin with, who stood and scoffed. They pointed out every last imperfection. There were also some who coveted it, so much so that they even thought to wait for an opportune time to steal it. Through it all, the artist and his son acted only with love and appreciation of their now finished work. Though now, their love was as great for the onlookers as for the work itself. So it remains there still today, a light on display at the center of that small city on a large hill, quickening all to its splendor. A beacon to the lost, a restoration for the broken, and a glimpse of the divine to even the most contemptuous and sneering eye. Much later, stories of the faithful onlookers would be recounted, many even telling of how, once they had caught sight of it, were forever changed. You see, it wasn't the piece itself that held such sway and caused so much division, but the all-encompassing love, devotion, and care of the artist and his son in the perfect unity of purpose. What they had created in the end was actually life itself. And that, to them, was more glorious than the beauty of any masterpiece. Well, that's our story for today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope it blessed you and touched you. And until next time, I love you all.
Story time. Special.